You're listening to Just a Couple of Jerks with me, Paul Winstanley, and another regular person from the IT community. This week I chatted to Chris Roberts. You may or may not know Chris, but Chris manages a huge config manager environment, and I was keen to chat with him about that. He manages over 100,000 devices. So how does he cope with that? Does it make any difference when you get above a certain number? Those sort of things. It was interesting to chat to him about that, but we quickly moved on to things not computer related, and we chatted for ages about music and his interests in Tim's Twitter listening parties, Tim being Tim Burgess from the Charlatans. Anyway, it's a real corker, and I hope you enjoy this week's episode.
Yeah, it's for somebody that's used to being at home quite often, and I've got the run of the house. I can go where I want, I can do what I want, I can be on calls whenever I want, and then all of a sudden you're sharing it with everybody, and it's the same as you. I've got teenage sons, so I'm not going to see them. We don't see them until gone lunchtime, so
yeah,
could be
or if a
fine.
router goes down, yeah.
Yes, and that's an interesting one, that actually, because we were having building work done 2 years ago. The one thing we found out is if you want to get your children to come and actually see you, actually take the internet down, because I did warn them. I said, "Hey guys, listen, we've got electric work going on today. I have to turn everything off." Yeah, but that doesn't compute with them. That, by the way, if you turn that off, I'm going to turn the router off, which means you're going to have no access to the internet. Computing is happening there on that. And then we turned everything off, and suddenly come down in total panic. The internet's gone down. What are we going to do in life?
Oh, jeez. Did they start sweating and shaking, did they?
It feels like that. It is definitely. I mean, it's definitely like a drug withdrawal for them to actually have to sit there and go, yeah, by the way, for the next 2 hours, you may have to see your parents, and you may have to talk to us on a one-to-one basis if you want to continue that communication level. And then the other son turns around and says, no, it's all right, I've got 4G. And we're like, well, there you go then. Life's complete. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, we're as bad with the phones, aren't we? When we're all, we're on commutes, everyone's sat on them, we're all tapping away. We're as guilty as they are. But it's when they emerge from the room. It's the only time you see them come out of the rooms, isn't it?
100%. And as you say, we are guilty of it. I don't know what you're like. We are, hey, when we get around the dinner table, we do ban phones, right? Or we try to. And then I sit there and I know that there's something happening. It could be football, right? It could be a football game going on that I want to see, like, the updates from, or it could be something at work happening that I'm just kind of, and it kind of like, really, you should be switching off, but you're not, because you end up kind of like, I'm just going to have a sneak peek, and you shouldn't, but you end up doing it. So
it's terrible, isn't it? I mean, you think about 20 odd years ago, we didn't even have any of this. And now we're totally consumed by it. And, the morning routine, let me just check my notifications and everything that's all happened. And that's why you're lying in bed and you think, geez, I need to get a bit of a life, really, and try and stop that in some way. But it's hard, isn't it? It's terrible.
You do exactly what you say. It's funny, and I bet you we all in. Actually, it's not just the industry. It's wherever we are. I wake up in the morning, and rather than get out of bed and kind of like, I just pick up my phone and just have a look and see what's the day. Yeah, what's the day ahead going to look like? And I'm
Yeah.
like, actually, I could just walk down, have my breakfast or whatever, and go to my laptop to see this. But no. I'm going to start the moment I woke up. I'm looking at my phone, like, what's happening in the world? What happened? Like, the news. You don't turn on the TV anymore. Hey, I can just flick on my phone. Look, that's what's happened today. Not a lot of point, by the way, looking at the news at the moment. If you're not going to be surprised with what's happening in the world by the news, are you?
No, no, not a great way to start the day either. Let's get anxiety levels up or whatever. I mean, oh, here's some more bad. I mean, news is always bad news, isn't it? That's what kind of
Yeah.
sells it. So we have to, read through it and all. Then you're thinking, oh my God, there's no cat stories today.
No,
It's
that's it, isn't it?
terrible.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's totally changed the world. It's totally changed the world. It's turned the world upon its head. Um,
Yes.
I mean, it's a strange one as well. What's happening? We was chatting in a meeting yesterday, and because we've got colleagues that basically have not been working from home as much as what they suddenly are thrusted into at the moment, and it is big. You've suddenly gone from, hey, I go into an office every day to, hey, I'm working from home every day. We have a regular kind of like sync up calls to, just to try and make people feel that they're still in an office and still in that work environment, and to make sure they don't feel isolated. Um, but we were saying on the call, I said, look, this is the greatest icebreaker of any meeting going in the world. I said, because we can all join in a meeting and we've all got the same thing to talk about. I said, because no matter where you are in the world, it is the same. And the really strange thing that I found out as well, no matter where you are in the world, the same things are happening. Nobody can get toilet paper. Nobody can get pasta. Nobody can get rice. I said, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Everybody went out and bought the same things.
Yeah. Flour. Oh,
Yeah.
a friend of mine sent me a stat from the local mill back up in Yorkshire, and the stats were unbelievable. We're producing say 1 ton of flour a month or whatever is now per week. It's suddenly quadrupled, or but you still can't get it because there's so much demand for it. And it's like all of a sudden we're experts. We'll all be on the next series of the British Bake Off. Maybe not that level, but I used to bake bread. I've talked about this before on the podcast. We had Mike Marable on, and we were chatting about how to make a sourdough starter. I had a crack at it, went horribly wrong, and my wife went, "Just stick to the yeast because you're wasting the flour. It's precious stuff.
Yeah.
But then you go, well, actually, I can't get the yeast either, so I'm going to have to work it out. But it's like, yeah, we've all suddenly gone back to the basics of 100 years ago, where we weren't getting this made loaf or whatever. We're making it, or biscuits. Let's just make our own because we don't want to go out.
Well,
But everyone's doing it.
yeah, 100%. And it's strange because I was talking to my wife about this, and we were saying this could change our shopping habits in particular for the good, because we've suddenly discovered, hey, there's a local business down the road from us used to supply meat to the catering industry, right? That's gone. That's gone. All of a sudden, most of their businesses just vanish. So what they thought is, what we've got to do is we've got to keep ticking over. So what we'll do is we're going to increase our public sales, or try to, and we've started buying our meat from there. My word, that's what meat used to taste like when I was young. It had flavour to it, and it's not full of water, and it's not full of it's just so much nicer. And then the local farm shop had potatoes. Everywhere else we went, couldn't get potatoes. The local farm shop had them. You bought them in a great big sack, and then you store them in your shed, and you go out and get what you want, and they actually taste really, really good for once. So it
Yeah,
could
yeah,
change
change
our
the
shopping
habits,
habits.
definitely. Yeah,
You know.
and where you used to be a little bit picky, go, oh, there's a few eyes on this potato, let me just lob it. Now it's like, actually, just cut them off, peel it,
Yeah,
get going. I'm
100%.
all for it, to be honest. That sort of local shopping, anyway. I mean, we've got the milkman coming now. We managed to get milk delivery,
Oh
and
my god.
we did that 20 years ago when we first moved here, And okay, it's a little bit more expensive because they're not being squeezed on margins like when the supermarkets squeeze them down to some stupidly low price.
Mm.
But he turned up at. I mean, I was awake last night at 2 a.m. He rocks up, and him and his mate. He's got his little mate with him doing his milk round and all that, and they're mucking about together. And I mean, are you hearing the clinking of the milk bottles? And I'm thinking, this is great. This is we should be doing this and encouraging this. And like you say, keep that going afterwards. Because do we need to fly all this stuff around the world because we want everything that's out of season? And as you say, it tastes a hell of a lot better when you get it. And locally, the fruit and veg guy, he's like the local hero. I know him. I go in there quite regularly before all this happened. But it's almost like, oh, have you got any extra? So it's like the old wartime, the guy at the butcher who could get you the extra sausages.
Have you got that
Brilliant.
secret supply under the counter kind of thing? It is funny actually, because we used to do it. We used to go to the farm shop. We used to get our sack of potatoes. Then times change.
Life gets busy, sort of things.
Yeah, and you start becoming a convenience shopper more or less. But it's totally changed for the last few weeks, and yeah, as you say, I think for the good, and it's going to change some attitudes. It could be a shake-up in the way in which we, source our food and things like that, I'd hope. And you're right, by the way, you're talking about in season, right? It's amazing the difference you get when you say go out. And I often say to my wife, she should say, do you want some plums? And I'm like, don't buy them. Why not? They're not in season.
Strawberries in December. Yeah.
Strawberries. Don't buy them. Why? They won't taste like strawberries. They're not in season at the moment. And you do that, and you buy them when they're in season, and they haven't been transported, from the other side of the world and things like that. And it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference to the flavour, and as well as that, you've made a big difference to a local producer, and you've made a big difference in the environment.
Totally. Nothing beats that. I mean, back in the day, I remember as a kid going strawberry picking, getting it fresh straight from the field and scoffing it whilst picking it.
Yeah.
You're munching away. They need to weigh you as you go in, never mind the basket, But it's much, much better, definitely. I haven't introduced you yet, Chris. So, Chris Roberts, welcome to Just a Couple of Jerks podcast.
Thank you.
Now, I keep saying this, you're not a jerk. At all. I hope not anyway. But so I've started this podcast now. We're quite rolling with this. I'm really enjoying doing it, actually. We're having a good old banter, a bit of a chat about things. And it's really to talk about how we're in this IT community. You're out there on Twitter, and you go to user groups, that sort of thing. We'll chat about all this later. But really, you're in the middle of all this, and you get kind of a status, not a celebrity status, but a little bit. You kind of get you get thrust upon this, and for myself as an MVP, definitely more so probably. But you've got a huge company to manage as well, which brings pressures and stress. And ultimately, what I'm trying to say by being a couple of jerks is just ordinary people trying to get through the day, trying to get things done. Well, thanks for joining today. I just really appreciate you coming in for this and joining the chat.
No problem at all. I appreciate it. I was quite surprised, when I got the message from you, because I'm not the MVP. I'm not one of the superstars of the client management world, as we would call it, now, or endpoint management. In that sense. But we've met a few times at the WMUG events.
Yes, in London. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you say superstar, and that's the thing, right? But to me, you are right because you manage a huge setup, and this fascinates me, right? And I'm just a little consultant guy in my eyes who's going around to different places, doing little things here and there. But to me, what you do is amazing. You're going to tell me it's not in a minute, but
Should we do the figures? Should we do the figures? Should we do the
Do the
figures? So
figures. Go on.
there's 107,000, approximately. Well, I think now we're down to about 105,000 Windows 10 systems in our environment. We actually don't manage the mobile devices within our team. So, hey, that's good. That's less of our plate as such. But as well as that, we've got some servers in there. So we manage these with SCCM primarily. But we're also an Intune household now. So when we throw in that, our infrastructure looks like, so we've also managing servers with our SCCM. So I think we're up to about 112,000 clients in total. We've got a CAS and 3 primaries. It's historical, that. Because we were over the threshold, or at least when we implemented this
at the time,
At the time,
it was 100,000.
Yeah, actually, we were just under, but we knew we'd go over. There was no point, you sit there and look at it and go, look, we may as well, when we're planning this infrastructure, let's plan it for our future. So yeah, and they seem big numbers. I suppose now, when I talk to you guys and things like that, I suddenly realise they are big numbers. But
They are, yeah. But then does it become irrelevant? You're managing for 20,000. Next up, you're 50,000. It just keeps stepping up. Does it become meaningless? Really, just figures, or am I putting that down slightly now?
You are dead right. I always say this. I say, look, if I get involved with all kinds of things, and one of those is interviewing people as well that are going to come into the organisation. And we're a global organisation, so when I say interviewing, they're not coming to see me. We're on the phone or on video conference for these kind of things. But and you'll get guys come in and they're saying, "Oh, I've only managed 30,000 clients," and I'm like, "That's an irrelevance, actually, because what we're going to do is we can teach you the scale." Right, we can teach you, techniques to manage in scale, right? But actually, the principles ultimately remain the same. Yeah, sometimes we've got to be a little bit more controlled about what we do. And how we roll stuff out, just because you don't want to roll something out that affects the huge amount of people like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But ultimately, everything that you do for 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, right? We're doing the same thing. Right? It's just sometimes a bit more challenging.
Oh, right. So it was pointless getting you on then. No, I'm joking. No, it does fascinate me. So I've scaled sites at that level in the past, but but that never got going. This particular project I was working on, it was to do over 100,000 devices, and so the infrastructure was built up, but the migration never happened in the time that I was there. So, setting up the infra for that is, a bit of planning, that sort of thing. It's not too difficult. But then the management of it to me seems different. And I suppose ultimately it's about a team of people. It's got to be, really, hasn't it?
100%.
Having. Yeah, and are your team? Are you numbers wise? Are you fairly hefty or?
So let's get to give you a kind of breakdown for that. So we kind of got split within our team as well. So I actually work as an architect across what we call our whole cluster. So across a number of our operations. So we have an individual imaging team that produces that used to produce the traditional images. I mean, we'll touch more on that a bit later, where we've gone over the last 12 months. But it used to produce the traditional images. There's 3 full-time members in that team. Right, and they produce a Windows 10 image, and they're also responsible for the updates to the Windows 10 image. And then actually managing SCCM itself and the whole infrastructure, deploying out all the applications, deploying out all the updates, etc., etc. We've got a team of 8 that does that. So, and as well as that, within that 8, you're not just doing the basics. Hey, I'm going to deploy this out because they want this piece of software. It's actually when you've got somebody that comes from you within the business with a challenge, and you've got to solve those challenges as well. Hey, we've noticed that XYZ on this model of laptop, and we need to change that. And can you roll out this registry key and then run this script once that registry key's on there? And we're like, yeah, fine. Have you got the scripts? No, of course we haven't. we're hoping you would actually write those for us. So we end up doing a lot of scripting and stuff like that as well. But
Yeah,
yeah,
so
I mean,
you're
13 in total.
constantly learning then. Yeah, you're constantly presented with new challenges, I assume.
100%. Yeah, oh no,
Yeah.
without a doubt. It's the thing that gets me up in the morning, with a smile on my face, because I know there's going to be challenges. I know there's going to be my boss is going to contact me and say, "Hey, Chris, I've got this like mad idea, and can you make it happen?" Kind of thing. And I'm like,
Oh, you're like, sorry, line's breaking up, can't hear you.
maybe
Just
that's
checking my phone. It's first thing in the morning. Get back to me later.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the advantage of being global, I suppose. You can do that, kind of thing.
yeah.
My boss is based in Chicago, so
Right. Yeah.
there's a time difference there, which suits me because I don't like mornings. I'm not a morning person, so I'm often on
Well,
my
I got you out of bed for this, have I? Sorry.
yeah. No, it's not too bad. I mean, I was only working. I think I sent my last email at 1 o'clock yesterday in the morning. So, yeah, I'm a bit of a workaholic as well on that sense. My wife says I like my job too much. That's why I'm a workaholic.
Yeah, and you do come across that way. So well, I think you have to be probably with the environment that you're working in and the numbers. Yeah, I think I'd assume you're again another assumption here, but your team are all pretty keen on what they do. I can't imagine there's someone in there going, "Oh God," maybe there is, but
Yeah, right, the odd one you get. Well, everybody has their off day. Everybody has their day when you're like, do you know what? I really can't face this today. But you go in, you see the challenges that are ahead of you, and that picks you up straight away because you sit there and think, well, we've got to solve these problems. And yeah, generally within our team, we've got the same attitude. I work with some really great people. I mean, I'm going to give a shout out now because I've got Bob Young who will come to events like MMS. He works in Philadelphia office for us. Incredible guy. Was originally the service owner for the client management team. He's now a fellow architect with me, and we constantly fire ideas off of each other. And then I've got the service owner now that sits in Austria, Renata Ratberger. She's just an amazing SCCM person, by the way, particularly when it comes to the SQL side of SCCM as well. Yeah, if I need a SQL query writing, I just go and say, Renata, can you write me a SQL query?
perfect.
Because you're much better off. She'll write it in, she'll go, she won't even write it. She'll say, oh yeah, I've already got one known for you. Here you go. Boom. But
Perfect. Yeah, that's what you need.
such a talented lady in SCCO and pleasure to work with as well on that sense. And then we got guys in our Asia office like Ricky Kong and that. He's a software updates expert. So if I've got problems with software updates, it's no point in me, and I do understand them, and I could easily find the answer, but that's why you have skill levels. That's why we have subject matter experts within our team. So I can say, hey, Ricky, can you deal with this for me? It makes my life easy so I can concentrate on the things that I need to deal with during the day. But
Well,
yeah,
this is it. I mean,
definitely talent.
it's such a beast of a product, isn't it? That you can become skilled in certain areas. I mean, my thing is OSD more so than
Mm.
software updates, and architecting more so than inventory or whatever. But it's one of those things that you get the SMEs focusing right down at that level. So when I hear Brian Dam or whatever in the community going about software updates or Jordan, I go, yeah, a bit more than I do about that. Because it's such a massive product and expanding all the time with the co-management side, the Intune side, and these are things that you guys have embraced. I know that from your presentations, and I'm saying, when you do the presentations with us, you at WMUG, you come across as someone who genuinely enjoys what he does and he's keen to share all that knowledge out as well. And that's why I wanted to get you in today, because I love that aspect of you, and also presenting didn't seem to be a challenge as well. We'll touch on that shortly, but I'm interested to see how your company has adapted in the lockdown then, because you were already on the autopilot in
Mm,
tune
mm.
side of things. You're already pushing that out. So has that helped you with CMGs in place? Were you doing code management? I can't remember if you talked about that.
No, we've done that right. Okay, we're a tap customer, right?
Yeah,
Which means let's cover that first. It means that we take the early release of all the software that all the guys in the community out there are running. Right? We take it and we implement it in our productive environment. Right? We do not implement it in our lab. Right? I'm going to stress that. We will take a version of SCCM 4 or 5 weeks before you guys get it, and we'll start implementing it, right? And we'll enroll it, right? With the help of the product team, right?
yeah,
So
you've got the
we,
product group there helping. Yeah,
yeah, we have a tap buddy. So actually, we work with Rob York on this all the
I was
time,
going to say,
right?
is it Rob? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So he'll say to us, "Hey guys, we got this. New versions coming out. Can you take it?" Right? We commit to taking one per year, right? Actually, we generally take all three. Right. The only time we don't is if it matches our quarter end closing, and we just basically cannot patch SCCM at that point. Right. That's the only time that we hit issues. Right. So we take that advanced version. Now with that, right, what these guys are going to ask us to do is also look at the new features. Right. So
Right. So all the pre-release stuff, they'll say, "Can you turn this on?" Yeah.
yeah, I hope not all of it. I mean, because obviously they look at they know us, they get to know us, and they know what we do. And what we're interested in, and where we're taking things, and then we're saying, yeah, okay, we're going to do co-management, right? So we did tenant attach the moment it came out, to actually get our Azure AD attached, and then we took co-management and we took cloud management gateway. I mean, we've had ours in place now. So I think it's since at least a year and a half, 2 years. Right. I can remember actually, we were sat down at MMS, and it's why I know Rob likes working with us, because we're saying to him, "Oh look, right, we're sat down at MMS and we're saying, look, do you want to implement that co-management now?" And he's like, "What? At MMS?" And we're like, "Yeah." He said, "Dan, we should get you guys just up on stage to show, hey, by the way, we're going to implement co-management in their environment live." He said, "Because this will be brilliant TV, brilliant viewing for people."
Yeah.
As you say, we're dealing with 100,000. What we do is we take calculated risks with this. We know we've got the product team behind us, so when we're implementing this stuff, we do. So it means we've had code management, cloud management, etc., in place for a long time, and that meant that when lockdown happened, all of our machines carried on being managed. Actually, we had direct access anyway for our traditional imaged machines, right? But what we did find out was that that direct access is designed to basically support the number of clients we get working from home on a general day. And then all of a sudden, we've got 100,000 clients at home. And it totally changes everything. So actually, what we've done now is we basically pushed out a pop up to our users saying, "Hey, would you mind if we disabling direct access and using F5, because we've got better capacity on our F5 gateways?" And they did. People chose to do that because, hey, this is IT. We're a technology company, so software. SAP, software company. It's big, but these people actually took it on, and they said, "Yeah, we'll drop that and we'll use F5 instead." So that meant that suddenly our clients were being actually just on F5 instead. Now the CMG comes into its own in the fact that we make sure everything does get pushed out. It did even with our direct access anyway, because we push all those clients directly to the CMG. Right? We miss the middleman. Don't send it, split tunnel it. Don't send it through your network, because all you're doing is sending it in and out at certain times, and then you're bringing data up to you're sending messages up to the SCCM, and then you're downloading packages across that same line. So yeah, split tunnel it. Was our attitude, and we do with the F5 as well. So everything's being split tunneled. We send it through the CMG. We download updates directly from Microsoft Update on the clients that need that, and we download the applications from the cloud distribution point. That's it. We did that. That was the part that we barely broke really any sweat. I had my boss saying, right, we're going to switch all the users over. Do you think we're going to be okay? I was like, yeah, of course we are. Don't worry about it.
Did you have to scale up a bit on the CMGs though? Did you?
No,
did you already?
Right. Okay. So I was talking about this on Twitter actually this week as well with people, because there were discussions about
it in Australia.
Yeah, and there's discussions about how many clients does it support a CMG? And I'm saying, look, you've got 6,000 clients per instance, right?
Concurrent connections.
Concurrent connections, and that is always the key takeaway: is concurrent connections, right? We had already scaled up 8 in our environment, right? So what's that? It's
something.
My maths is bad.
40
Yeah, it's a figure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're allowing that to happen, right? We already had that in place. We already had that in place because it was for our future expansion anyway, and that's on the Intune side, right? But we actually didn't have to scale up anymore because, as you said, as you highlight there, it's concurrent connections. And if your client doesn't get a connection, it just waits until the connection's open so it can actually do whatever it needs to do. And it's only really about the policies and things like that. So it's not a huge amount of data that the client's transferring to and from the CMG itself. The real transfers come within the cloud distribution point. So we were kind of like, yeah, we're already at that scale, and if we need to, we've already got everything open so that if I need to, because the big challenge is going from using 443 to the, 10.124 ports and upwards for the CMG. That's the big challenge. So I make sure, particularly if you're in a large corporate environment like ours, making sure your security teams are aware that you need these extra ports open and getting those opened up. That was a challenge. When we went from one instance during our testing to suddenly saying, right, we want to put 8 instances in, I'm like, okay, I've got to get this open now. And, filling out the security documents, etc., really important for us, that side of things. But once we got it open, I was like, yeah, we open up the ports for everything, for the whole 16 instances if we need them. Because then, as if we need to scale out, we can just go bang, 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 bang. We're scaled out already. So we already had the scale there. But and I know I've been quite vocal on the CMG side of things recently, and as well as that, I've even shared our costs so that people can see it's something like 0.1 cents per client per day. It's silly, and I keep saying you cannot run a server for the amount of money that we run a CMG. And I was talking to our guys about it yesterday. We were going through the cost analysis, and some of us was like, "But it's $2,500 a month." I said, "You cannot run a server for that." I said, "You think in a corporate environment, right? The server alone." If I told you the cost of our CAS servers and that, our main CAS and our CAS SQL, mainly that SQL server on the CAS and our primaries, right? Silly specs, right? Absolutely silly specs. By the way, one of the things that I look at is when Microsoft released their specs. Yeah, I always look at them and I have a little chuckle to myself because, I know ours is 4 times the amount of memory as that. 4 times the amount of processing power as that, right? As what they would recommend for us. But we do it because we don't want. What I don't want to do is when we put in a server, I don't want to be replacing it or having to try and upgrade it in 2 years' time. It's crazy. Don't get involved in that. I want it to actually last. But if you're putting a server, a server grades, proper server grade servers in your DMZ. Right, and I would have to scale out the number of management points you've got for that. Then I'm going to have to put a load balancer in front of them, a proper load balancer, because you're only coming in on one address. Do you know what? that's going to be silly amounts of money alone for those servers. Now, once you then take in, and this is what most people seem to forget, the running costs of those servers. It's easy saying I've got a server. Anybody that's run a server at home knows what happens to their electricity bills, right? If they leave it on 24/7, right? Your electricity company loves you. Your wife probably doesn't when you do that. I've found out in the past.
Yeah.
But and it costs money, and then you've got cooling, and then you've got actually the maintenance costs involved, which you haven't factored in. And then, right, one thing you've got to do is you've got to make sure those servers are well and truly well patched. Yeah. Do not leave them exposed on your DMZ without being, making sure the patching regime on those is absolutely critical. And I'm not just talking about your Microsoft patching here. I'm talking about things like the firmwares on those servers as well.
Oh God, yeah.
Slightest vulnerability, somebody will try to exploit it. And so you've got to be really on top of your game on that. Yeah. Or you can let Microsoft handle it all for you. It's a no-brainer from my eyes.
Yeah. Totally, yeah. When you put it in those terms, it totally just quashes any kind of argument against not doing this. And like you say, it's very simple then for you because there's no management of that at all for yourself, is there? It's just configure it, off it'll go and build itself, configure itself once you've gone through the wizard and done that initial pain of setting up, and that's it, job done. Leave it to do its job.
100%.
So when it came to so you had to change maybe the way some of the people were coming into the network, but you were very easily then just getting people working remote. I can imagine SAP have got a lot of remote workers anyway, and they're kind of used to that mentality. It's just all of a sudden everyone's doing this. So have they adopted this across the world globally?
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
There's you basically. So one thing I say, right, is our management is world class. Right? Our management all the way through the organisation is world class. I've been here a long time, so it's easy for me to say, But as a company, they were, the guidance they let out, and that was perfect. Yeah, really, really good, right? And then not only that, though, people were prepared to work from home, but pretty much all of our offices around the world are shut now, every single one. Right, you have to get an approval from managers if you need to go and visit one of our offices. Basically, they closed down all the offices fairly early as well in the grand scheme of things, So and they put in so much support for our workers, as I was saying earlier, and that meetings with just general meetings with a team, trying to make sure that people don't feel like they're isolated. It's something you have to do, because if you've got somebody that's been used to going into an office and meeting people every day, suddenly that changes, and I know from, because I work from home a fair amount, right? And then I go into the office every so often because to test things that I can only test within the office environment, because I need to check things on how things run on the corporate network, or there's problems and I can go in and I can experiment around. But the other thing I do is I go in for human contact, because actually, if you're working at home on your own, your wife leaves in the morning to go to her job, your children leave to go to school. I've got children that work as well, so they go off and work as well. Then the house could suddenly become a very lonely part if you don't have that place, if you don't have that human contact. There's only so many times I can look at one of our cats and think, oh yeah, at least I've got company here. Because they're just plotting. They're just plotting how they could eat me if I drop down dead all of a sudden. So they don't care about people, do they? Cats. So.
No, not at all.
It's not like having a dog around the house or things like that. So yeah, it can become a lonely place. So I say to people, talk, chat online, get pull up Teams. We use Teams. Pull up Teams. Put your cameras on. Talk to each other. Although don't put your cameras on at the moment, because I think I should have gone to the barbers 3 weeks before lockdown. Yeah. So
It's
you got
getting messy, isn't it? Yeah.
oh,
I didn't go. Jeez.
it's a regret in my life now not going to. Some of the other things in life. I'm just sat there thinking, do you know what? I regret not going to the barbers 3 weeks before lockdown.
Yeah, no, I'm like going, okay, so I think my student look might be coming back soon. Like stupid curtains and, early 90s floppy hairs back,
Yeah, yeah. I
Terrible,
think
terrible.
definitely happening. It's going to be funny what everybody's going to be like. I mean, because obviously we're in lockdown for another 3 weeks now, so it's going to be
Yeah.
funny what everybody's going to look like come the end of this. But you're not going to be
Yeah.
able to
I
get a
mean, the
barber's
thing is,
appointment.
I was going to say, we're going to be cautious about going back to the barbers anyway, aren't we? Not as soon as we do come out, we're not going to be rushing down there.
I don't know. I think it'd be like the loo roll. I think
Yeah.
everybody is going to be. You won't be able to get an appointment. You'll go down there. There'll be queues out the door because obviously you've got to be 2 meters apart anyway. Even when I think this ends, but there'll be miles down the street. Yeah, you forget it.
They're going to have like clippers on the end of poles as well, aren't they? Clipping our hair and
Yeah.
God, isn't it crazy, really? But I mean, this is totally unprecedented times, and
Yeah.
SAP seem to have adapted very well to that, and the way they've handled it is fantastic, really. And um, you know, it's such a huge company to be so quick at responding to something like
So
that.
yeah, but so from our perspective, from endpoint management, right, we've had a hard sell over the last 6 months, right, because we've released our Intune autopilot provision systems, right, where the user takes the device away themselves and they connect it to the network and they follow the instructions on the sheet and then they end up with a perfectly provisioned SAP system. So just an insight into that, by the way, we're doing AAD join only, so we're not getting involved with hybrid join and having to deal with all of that. And the only thing we're doing is co-management, but AAD join, so we're going full in modern is the way I like to put it. Yeah, we're really diving in there. But because we've had that's been a hard sell because what you're saying to an end user is, and your IT teams, by the way, is like, yeah, how you used to give that machine that was just the user could log in and it was virtually ready. They'd have to just, perhaps do a couple of things afterwards and that. Yeah, really the end user's going to do that themselves. How much work? It's 15 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe. It really does depend. It's actually for them, it's probably about 2 minutes work. They just have to enter in their, their username, password, and perform an MFA in order to get it through the process. Really, but it's still a part. And then if something goes wrong, your user's there, and what do I do? What do I do? If they're on their own, and that was a hard sell right up until 1 month ago when
Of
people said
course.
to us, hey, SAP's still employing. Right, we've still got 200 new starters starting in the company virtually, every week. Right, so it's big still, right? And they're saying to us, hey guys, these 200 new starters, how can we get them laptops? I'll just send them out. Look, we'll get the Intune process going. Yeah, do not worry. Yeah, so there have to be some tweaks to our processes and that with this, right? But it was more we're tweaking rather than having to start afresh. Right then. So they've got that now. The next level is though as well when our supply chain started to kind of like dry up with the devices that we normally like to supply. Didn't matter. We're saying, hey guys, we were certifying that laptop over there. Yeah, good, cool. Is it good? Yeah, right, cool. Can we start shipping it out? We no longer had to worry about integrating drivers, doing all kinds of things, and then running tests out of OSD either. It was like, no, supplying the device, it'll work. Yeah, I've got people saying to me, "You sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course it will. It's got an OEM image on it. It's a perfect device to give to our end users. It's only a slight variant on what we're previously supplying. and that's the beauty of it, in the fact that we can suddenly, our supply chain can open up to devices that we've never had before as well, just to keep our people working. So
Yeah,
it's
because if you didn't have this, what could you do? Just make the logistics, the solution, all the components required to get that out to someone impossible, wouldn't it? So
it makes it
it's
challenging.
yeah, yeah.
It's a challenge.
And this has made it a breath of fresh air in a way, hasn't it? That you can just pass it. And as you say, a hard sell becomes an easy sell all of a sudden.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, people can see where we were going. By the way, and that's the
Right.
weird thing, in the fact that what it's done is it's taken something that people couldn't necessarily see the value in, and then all of a sudden they go, oh yeah, I can see where you're going now. In fact, actually, I was helping a guy out. So you touched on it on one of your previous podcasts. Our use of rigs, our use of basically using early adopters of our technology, and what we do. They get good support by these guys, because what happens is, when they're early adopting, us guys that are working at the third level, or working as architects and things like that, so we're not even normally doing support. Suddenly, we're supporting guys that are out in the field, so they're getting that A-level support, kind of thing. So I had a guy that turned around and said, look, once he's got a traditional image machine, he's saying, look, once a day, I just keep getting blue screens all the time, and it's running so slow. He said, is there any way I can adopt this as an Intune machine? And we were like, yeah, of course we can. So, and we talked him through it. We talked him through resetting. I said, just make sure you got everything backed up, right? Did the machine? Yeah, okay, do a reset. Unfortunately, actually, the reset didn't work on his machine. I said, look, just go and get a copy of get
Sod's
the
law.
Windows Media Creator. Yeah, get the Windows Media Creator
Yeah,
off the
yeah,
internet. Create yourself a boot
yeah.
stick, and we'll talk you through. And we talked him through, and he booted it, and he got
Right.
it, and it configured it. He wiped his machine, and it went into autopilot. And suddenly, he turned around at the end, and he's got a perfectly working machine. He's like,
Brilliant.
wow, brilliant. That is,
Yeah.
superb. Thanks, guys. And then they start to see the value in what we were trying to propose, in the fact that actually the world's becoming remote, right? We're going to, and I think one of the other things that come out from this is, do you really need to be in an office all the time
Yes.
as a
Yes.
worker?
Exactly. And I was going to mention that at the start. Those things that are changing. It's not just fruit and veg, meat deliveries. Does this change the way that you operate? Yeah.
Yeah,
Do we
yeah,
need to do
yeah.
that
The
commute?
way. Yeah, exactly. It's wasted time commuting. And particularly living. I mean, I live outside of the M25, but in order to get to our office, I go around the M25. It's a car park
Oh
some days.
Christ!
There's just, why, and it's the worst stretch. It's the stretch from the M40 round to the M4 and around by Heathrow. Yeah, it's the worst stretch.
Oh
I don't
Jesus!
want to be on that. I don't want to be saying
God,
that. It's
God, it's
wasted
awful.
time. It's time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you probably know more than what I do, because working as anything in consultancy, I can remember doing it. You sometimes you end up out on the road. I think even consultancy nowadays, you can do much more without actually going even to visit the customer as such. But still, you have to go and visit your customers. And it's just like, the times I sat in traffic and think, well, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And you do it even in, and I'm not a consultant, I'm working for a single company, but I sat there and I think, why do I do this some mornings? It's taking me an hour and a half to get into the office. Yeah, and I've got an hour and 15 minutes journey on the way home. Yeah, that's 2 hours 45 minutes of my day that I could have spent in a much more productive manner.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And oh God, you're in that worst part of that M25. And, I try to avoid the rush hour, but you can't, can you? Really, it's impossible. I mean, now, I bet it'd be an absolute joy to drive. My
Imagine it.
son's up in Warwickshire at university, and my eldest, and come June he'll need to July, you'll need to leave the houses in. So we'll have to go and collect it. And I'm wondering what's going to happen around that time, lockdown measures. Are we allowed to go and do that? But I'm thinking, well, actually, if we are allowed to do that, it's going to be a lovely drive up there.
that will
It'd be
be
almost like
actually.
driving back in the 50s and 60s on the motorways when they first opened up.
Yeah. He didn't get they didn't just send them all home then from his university, or was
Well, I don't know if he wants to come back. Year two, it's that point where you start moving away a bit. You're thinking, okay, I've got my flat now. The first year is in like
yeah.
halls of residence, so they get booted out at Easter time and Christmas. And now he's no real reason to come back.
So
No, there's no
I
obviously
have to
lectures
give you
and
the bad
physical
news.
presence on site.
To give you the bad news, though, my daughter was the same. She was like, I'm not going to come back. I'm not going to come back. I'm not coming back. Yeah. And then she got to the end of the third year and she's like, I'm coming back. And she's back living with us because it's so expensive to buy a house in our area and things like that. So it was just like, yeah, I'm not going to come back. And then suddenly she's there. Yeah. And she's like, why would I want to move out at the moment? I've got it easy in this house. So.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I can see that. I don't know. Maybe daughters are different. I don't know. I know I didn't want to go, but at very different times, obviously.
Yeah.
So I went to university in the early '90s. I finished about '94, and the thought of going back home was like, God, no, that's not on my mind at all. But I did go back for a couple of months. I'd moved down to London and then I finished a job. I moved into another job and it wasn't right for me. And my partner, who's now my wife, she went up to study in Leeds. So I went and moved up there. So I went back home for a couple of months and I was like, oh, yeah, that's enough.
That's where my daughter went to university up in Leeds. So she did love it up there, and she's like, the only thing is, so she works in she works as a designer in advertising, and she says the problem that she's got is it's a very southeast centric kind of environment in a lot of ways. So the opportunities that she had coming back down here were going to be that much bigger for her. So she kind of like tended to. It's an easy option as such to be down here. So.
That's the thing. I mean, I went up to Sunderland to study, and at the end of that, it was like, okay, where's the work? It wasn't in the northeast, so
No.
I had to shift and came down to London purely initially for a chap I was living with. He was his ex girlfriend even at the time, and came down just for her birthday. And we looked at each other as we were down here walking around London, and we're going, why don't we just come down here? It's not working for us up in the northeast, and
Yeah.
that was that really. So
Was that
I
in
mean, Chris,
IT? Was that in IT,
eh?
Paul? Have you always been
Well,
in?
I was trying to get IT. I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do when I was growing up at all. And
Didn't
my
you?
dad kept saying to me, no, I didn't have a clue. And, my dad was like, you must know by now. I mean, he went straight into the mines. Sorry, he wasn't a miner. He was an electrician, but the industry was there
Yeah.
in Yorkshire. Obviously, that all fell apart in the 80s. But, for me, I didn't want to do that anyway. But he's like, what do you want to do? You should know by now. You're 14. I was like, what? You're crazy. Yeah, And so I went, journalist, I don't know. But I was into art. I was doing a lot of art stuff. Then I kind of sacked that off at sixth form and went more to the business studies things. And then it was only really at uni poly stroke uni, that Windows came on board and Microsoft. And I was like, oh, I get this.
Yeah.
But then it was like trying to get a job was hard because I didn't have work experience. So, I mean, for yourself, how did you get involved in it all?
I was always I was doomed to be in IT because I remember, so going back, I mean, I can remember back in the early 80s, when the first home computer boom happened in the UK, so always I was like, this is something that I get. Yeah, I kind of like, I get it, because my brain thinks quite logically through
Mm,
problems.
yeah, same
So
here.
it really does match computers really well. So like,
Yeah.
it was like Dragon 32s and Oryx and the BBC Micro, and obviously I was a ZX Spectrum man, because cheap, cheerful, can hook it
Oh,
up to your
yeah.
TV,
Yeah.
and
Commodore
we all
64, we'll be at war on that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But and as well as that, in those early days, you would get the You can remember getting a program in the back of the magazine, and you would type it out, and then it wouldn't work.
Yeah. We're all chatting about this on the podcast. You get these bloody magazine listings, you spend hours typing it up, and then you just errored in it straight away.
Error
And you
straight
were like,
away.
oh, shall I go through all that and work it out? No.
No, I did. That's my
Oh,
problem.
did you?
I'd spend hours
Brilliant.
working out where their code was wrong and things like that. And then it's the same at school. So then I was doing, like, GCSEs, computer studies, right? Um, I should I say? Yeah, I'm going to say it. I probably knew more than the teacher about programming, because I'd already learned to program and stuff like that, and I'd be like correcting, no, your program wouldn't work, oh, we can optimize this bit of programming here, and so I'd be told, yeah, just go and help other people with their programming,
Right.
and so it was easy for me, that course was probably going to happen, and I ended up doing my degree in IT, and
Right. Okay.
and then
See, my computer studies was very different. So I did O level computer studies, and we had a teacher who was pretty mad. Mr. White, he was called. He looked like Mark Knopfler, yeah. He was a spit image of Mark Knopfler. And he used to come in with the headband on as well to make himself look more like it and flick his hair back and all that. But he was mental, and he distracted the whole lesson, not the kids. He'd walk in, right, and everybody sat down. And all of a sudden he'd go, tss, tss, and he'd be looking around the room. Start again. And then he'd all of a sudden he'd have this carrier bag, and he'd pull out this toy snake, soft, cuddly toy snake, and attack his neck with it. And he goes, throw it across the room. And you go, Jesus Christ, this guy's going to be teaching me in a minute. But he'd just spend the whole lesson just talking about anything, and you'd never get anywhere. So that's where my skills of computer studies come from. Oh, God.
See, that would be my problem if I was a teacher. You see, I like to keep, and we do the same in work. I like to keep it our team fun. I like to, if you're gonna have work, you're gonna work. It's you do this. You spend a lot of your time doing this, right? Make it fun. Keep it fun. Have fun with what you're doing. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why IT is so easy for me. I love it. I absolutely, my wife has spoken to her friends. She was at work one day, and they was on about your job, and they were saying, like, oh, it's a job. Nobody loves their job. She said, no, you're wrong there. You haven't met my husband. And they said, no, he doesn't love his job. And she said, no, he honestly does. And I often say to my boss, I have my reviews, and he'll turn around to me and say, is there anything? I said, no, just thanks for paying me for what I absolutely love doing. Because it's ideal for me. I go into work, and somebody tells me, hey, can you do stuff with computers all day? And I'm like, yeah, of course I can.
Yeah.
Come on. But yeah,
I mean, that's
when
exactly when I got my first job in IT. This is like 25 years back or whatever, 30 years ago. It's exactly what I felt going into that first job. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe people are paying me to
yeah,
go on a computer.
yeah. It's still the
I mean, I've
same. It's
changed
still the
since
same.
then.
It's still the same.
You've
Come on.
retained that. You've retained that. Well done.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
still like, you pay me. I mean, I started working when I first started in the industry. I was a Visual C++ programmer. So, like,
Right.
real geeky, I always
Yeah.
say, us guys that do what we do, yeah. And I work in a development organization, right? Developers are like, yeah, forget that. They're crazy guys. The only problem I had, yeah, I find development becomes, or at least at the time, it's quite solo. It was quite, I need to just switch in and churn out code here and get things working. And my first company discovered that I like talking. And you can put me. So I worked behind a bar when I was at uni. I wasn't quiet before that, but I was, I wasn't, as confident as what I was until, I get behind a bar and suddenly you have to talk to people. And this is in the days when people would come in, they'd tell you that the whole of their work, the whole of their life story, at a bar, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I can do this. I can talk to people. And then, my first company understood that, and they was like, put me out in front of customers, and they did. They put me out in front of customers, and I was like, yeah, we can do this, we can do that, we can sort this out for you, and let me get things working for you. I
So
mean, I can
did that become a shift then in what? So by
yeah,
them
yeah,
doing that, that changed from you just tapping away and coding to doing other things. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. It just totally changed my focus because I was like, wait a minute, you're now. Not only are you paying me to sit at computers and play with computers all day, you're paying me to talk to people as well. This
To
is
just talk,
you're
yeah.
this isn't work, guys. Come on, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
it was crazy, it was just like, hey, I can do this. I can talk to people. I can, and then, I mean, one of my things from that first job that I got, it was so funny because I used to travel about, like we were saying, and we used to have a
Mm.
thing, right? I used to, we had a lot of customers in the Manchester area. And they would be like, okay, Chris, this customer's got a problem. You go to Manchester. We always said you had to clear Birmingham by about 7:30 in the morning. Otherwise, you're not getting to Manchester, right? So I'd always, clear that, go and have breakfast somewhere, and then carry on up. Right, so I went up to Birmingham one day, and to Manchester one day. Lovely customer, kind of like I'd phone them up and tell them when I was going to arrive because they'd open up their little private car park for me to actually drive my car in, and they'd say, phone us up 5 minutes before you're here. I would, and they'd say, right, we'd make sure the kettle's on, and you'd go and sit down. They'd say, right, what's wrong? And they said, no, let's have a cup of tea and a chat first. And you would, lovely. Best cup of tea. Go up north if you want a decent cup of tea as well. Yeah. So, and we would do that. We'd have a cup of tea, and then I said, right, what's your problem? And they said this, and I was like, okay, there you go, it's fixed. They go, but Chris, you've only been here half an hour. I was like, yeah, I know. I said, but it's all work. I said, is there anything else you want me to do while I'm here? And they're like, no, they said, but honestly, we feel so foolish sending you up here for I said, look, don't worry. I said, I'll probably pop in and see one of our other customers or something. And they said, oh, no. If your company phones you, we've got your mobile number. We'll phone you up and but we're telling them you've only just left. If they phone up or something. And it was like that. You went out, you did half an hour's work like that, and it was just crazy. Lovely customers and that, and you suddenly you built up that relationship with your customers. And things like that, and it was really cool.
Just
But
gassing away. Great stuff, yeah.
yeah,
So going back to uni then, Chris, I've kind of worked out just by your conversations on Twitter recently that I think we're pretty much the same age. So
yeah. I think you're probably, I think you're a couple of years ahead of me, but
I'm
yeah,
71, not
I
71
was.
years old, but I was born in
I feel
71.
like it. I was 72, but right at the end of 72.
Right.
So
Okay,
yeah,
yeah, so I'm the big boy.
and
So
I had a
like
year out
you,
between uni as well. So
what's that?
but I had a year out between
Oh,
sixth
did
form
you?
and uni as well. So
Oh, I
where
had
I'm going to
3 years
go.
at sixth form,
Yeah, I
so
thought, I'm
I
going to.
didn't start.
Oh, okay. So I was like, I'm going to go out into the big wide world and all this stuff. Why do I want to go?
Yeah.
And then I realised the big wide world wasn't for me at that point. So
Yeah, that's it. I didn't know what, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing, so I ended up dropping art at sixth form and then taking on board business studies.
mm.
Very exciting, and did that A level in 1 year. So I was there for 3 years. I didn't actually start uni until 90. So what you start about 91? Did you at uni?
Oh God, no,
92,
92. I think my was it 92.
92.
Yeah. It was just
Yeah,
before my 20th birthday. So 92, I started out. Yeah.
right. And where did you go to uni then?
That was Brunel, but I did my HND first because I was like, you know what, 2 years HND, I'll finish that, and then topped it up to my IT degree at the end of it. So for 2 years, so I actually spent
Okay.
4 years at university. So it's like, yeah, brilliant. Give me another 2 years of this. And then came out in 1996. So just at the height of
96.
Britpop.
Yeah. So this is it, right? So I know. So this is it. You're very vocal on Twitter at the minute on the Tim Burgess Twitter parties, yeah.
Tim Burgess,
And
what a hero! What a hero! I love that
yeah,
guy.
does he know you?
No,
He's,
but
no, sounds like he should have.
yeah, no. That's right. Now, IT's a passion, but now you've hit on my real passion. I have 3
Yeah,
passions in life, right? One, a football club, Liverpool Football Club. Right. Anyway,
yeah,
forget
I've
that one.
seen that on Twitter.
Well,
LFC, it says. I
I
thought, oh god,
try not to discuss. Right. The weird thing is, right, football it's tribal. It's tribal though, so that's why I don't really get involved in football, right? And actually, I did once on Twitter, right, and that was with Lego because Lego released this Man United's Old Trafford Stadium. Big Lego fan, right? But I'm like, you guys do not understand that, right? That's tribal, yeah. Where's Anfield? Where's it'd be like, come on, you can't do that to us. So particularly Man United, I'm like, oh god. But that's tribal, so I stay out of it a bit more on Twitter, right? And
yeah.
then
There's
there's
a
the
lot of
IT side.
LFC fans who are config manager people. You got
I
Jerry
know,
Hampson,
yeah.
Kenty's one as well. Anyway, go on.
Well, the weird thing was actually we were in MMS last year, and I was in a session as Liverpool were playing Barcelona at Anfield. But I know Jurgen Nielsen was watching. They had it on his laptop, and I should have left my session and gone and watched the game. But I was in this session. Who was running it? Garth was running the session on
Oh yeah.
reporting. But basically, I had my laptop up with the things, and I was just sat there going, "Oh my god." It's 2-0. It's 2-0. I mean, what is 4-0? What's happening? In their life, But so I'm in a session there. No, I know. I was speaking to Jurgen and Ken and Jerry. Yeah, we talk. That's the one thing we can talk about as
That's
well.
your banter.
Am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I've got that.
But music.
The IT, but it's the music. Music's my real passion, by the way. I'm insanely. I'm sometimes a little bit geeky about certain parts on the music side. I go a little bit, heavy into certain bands. The Charlatans being one of them. So, I've seen the Charlatans. Well, I've got tickets for about 20 gigs, 25 gigs, but ticket stubs. I like my ticket stubs, but you don't get them anymore, do you? You get them delivered electronically. I'm like, I need my ticket stubs. But then there was gigs where you used to go in and they used to take your stub off you and not give them you back at the end. And I was like,
You fighting them for it?
where's my stuff? That wasn't my one. Kind of thing. So there's ones that I've lost. So it's probably seen them about 30 times, and you take in festival performances and that as well. So it was.
So he should know who you are. Then you're almost stalking him. In a way,
I feel like it at the moment because I constantly tweeting him with these listening parties, but something insane has happened with those because I remember when they first started. So he used to do them just for the Charlatans albums. He'd have a listening party, say, "Hey, tonight we're gonna listen to Telling Stories," and then I'll tell you, and he'd tweet, this happened, or when we were in the studio, particularly Telling Stories, what that band's been through, the Charlatans, unbelievable stuff. But he would do this. But then in lockdown, his thing has had Twitter listening parties, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get my friends along to actually introduce their album. And
he might know one or two, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many that I know. There's stuff that I didn't know. So I was listening to Sleaford Mods, and I haven't heard any of their stuff until I joined the listening party. Interesting stuff. Very, it kind of like harks back a bit to the punk days where music really had a message in it. Real weird one was the Style Council the other night.
You were listening to this, weren't you?
Over a shop.
Our
Yeah.
favourite shop, jeez, yeah.
My word, though. But do you know what? You listen to that music on. God, I'm going to sound really pretentious or geeky now about it. That's an album that works on different levels for different people, because I think that you listen to the music and you're thinking, hey, this is kind of like quite fun, soulful kind of music, but then you check out the lyrics of that stuff, and you're like, holy crap, this was so political. But you didn't realize it with the Style Council. You realized it with the Jam. The Jam were a political band. The punk movement was based about, inequalities and politics of what was happening at the time, right? But you didn't understand that. That was exactly the same with the Style Council. And I went through those lyrics, and I was like looking at some of the lyrics as we were going on. And I was like, you know what, this rings so true in our modern world now. That in since the time that this was released. I mean, when was that? 88. It had been like
84?
84 would be my guess.
Yeah.
I'm not that good, but since the time of release, not a lot has changed in our world. Or it has, perhaps in cycles, but we always end up going back.
Oh yeah, I mean, even the specials, for example, they
Yeah.
released an album last year, but they were kind of saying, well, those first two specials albums, if you listen to what we're talking about, it's still totally relevant 40 years down the line.
They're doing a listening party as well, by the way.
Yeah, I know. The one I'm looking forward to is John Shuttleworth.
Oh yeah,
He's
see,
doing
I
one.
don't know it. I don't know any of his music, so I will listen. And that's the weird thing is listening to the stuff where you haven't listened to before. That's where. Or I tell you, the one that really got me was because I'd only just picked up on the album, and that was the Cocteau Twins,
Oh, right.
Heaven or Las Vegas, right? Yeah, I'm an Apple Music man, not a Spotify man. So, because they had a family plan actually, which Spotify didn't have at the time, so it's easy for me to say to our kids, "Hey, go off and do that." And their music came up on a playlist, and some stuff from Heaven or Las Vegas came up as a recommendation, and so I listened to a few of the tracks and listened to the album probably about 3 weeks before they did the listening party. So I'd listened to that album once all the way through, and a few of the tracks a few times, yeah. But to go into that listening party, it was really, really cool one. I really, really, really cannot say go out if you haven't heard Heaven or Las Vegas. Yeah, go out and listen to it as an album,
And I
because
never
it was.
have. They were one of those bands I never really got into. So,
No, same here, same here. I wasn't into them, and then suddenly, and actually, the other thing that I kind of like tweeted out quite a bit was on in these parties is how your even listening to a single album over time evolves, and your favorite track becomes it's still a favorite track, it's still a good track, but actually, what's happening is the track that you didn't think was an outstanding track suddenly becomes your outstanding track over time. Happened with quite a few bands for me, Stone Roses being one. You pick up on some of the stuff, and then suddenly you think, actually, no, the first Stone Roses album.
and
You
it's
sort of
so
go down
easy
the
now
line.
to skip through them, isn't it? That's the thing. Back in the day, I mean, I still buy vinyl. I'm sure you do.
I don't believe it or
Would
not,
you not? Oh,
because
right. I thought you would be. Right.
right. So I have, so I have B&W speakers, which I've just got no space for anymore in our house, with the kids and everything. So they're actually locked away somewhere, a set of B&W 603 floor standards. I've got an Arcam amplifier, which is just power and a set of DIN audios at the moment. And then I've got an Arcam CD player. Now, there is a reason why I haven't gone down the vinyl. There's two reasons, right? One, to go down the vinyl route, the one thing that I would want is a listening room, and so I can shut people out, right? Because if I'm going to stick on an album on vinyl, it's a listening experience for me. Yeah, so I'd be, again, I'm probably sounding really pretentious here, but I'd want to sit down and just soak up that album, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I know, because I was like it with CDs, I've got like 700 CDs in a cupboard, right? Which huge amounts of music, both from across the whole spectrum, right? But it would take over my life if I started collecting vinyl. Really,
Right.
big time. I
Right.
was looking the other day, and a deal came up for the Doves album. All three of them, the first three ones, right? So Lost Souls, Last Broadcast, and Some Cities, right? Double albums, coloured vinyl, yeah. And I looked at them, and I was like, oh. And then by doing this, because I've got an amp it's already got a phono pre-stage in it, yeah. So
Yeah.
I've already got the amp set up, yeah. And I was sat there
Yeah.
thinking, but then the problem is, I know what I'm like, and I know that I know that when you start looking at vinyl, because when we were in the CD world, your system went in thirds as such. You'd put a third of your budget on the CD, third on an amp, and a third on the speakers. I know that when you get to vinyl, it's all about the source, yeah, because you have to, without a good record deck, yeah, it doesn't. Without a good deck, it doesn't work. Or it wouldn't work for me. Yeah. So I know that if I started down this path, I know that the first thing I'm going to do is go and spend a good part of 700, 800 pounds on a turntable. Yeah.
Mm.
And then the vinyl that goes with it would end up costing me a fortune. So I've avoided it. I keep looking though longingly.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the thing. It's and also you start to, as you probably did with CDs, you start to buy everything again. So
mm,
I mean, it's a Buffalo Tom record that's dropped through the post today for me, and 25th anniversary red vinyl, and I didn't have it when I was at uni. I used to listen to a mate's copy who I lived with, and I had it on cassette. I taped it off him, and just like, oh, all right, I'm gonna get that. It's like, okay, I've got to have. It's been obsessive, and as a kid, I was
yeah,
ridiculously so with certain bands, getting the
yeah.
7 inches, the 12 inches. Oh, there's a picture disc, I'll get that. The albums, stupid.
See, I'm the same. Right. So the Charlatans going back, right? The first single, Indian Rope, right? So is it's I basically I had to trawl through Record Collector magazine in order to find somebody that was selling Indian Rope on a CD single, because CD singles were hard to come by for
Right.
that one.
Oh
You could
God, yeah.
get you could get 7-inch vinyl really easy, but I wanted the CD single, right? So I ended up paying something like about 15, 20 quid for the CD single because I wanted them all. Gotta have them all. I was a bit the same with the early Oasis albums and stuff as well, because they would release an album and it would have a very, so when we were doing the What's the Story Morning Glory listening session, right? The album had a track called Bonehead's Bank Holiday, right? Sorry, Bonehead, it's not that great a track, right? But I had
He
to
won't be
have it.
listening.
I had to, yeah. You never know.
Right.
But I had to have that track. I had to have it. So I went out and bought the vinyl. Then I've got nothing to play it on. Okay. Or then I contacted a mate and said, "Look, can you bring your turntable down? What for? I need to record this one track onto tape,
Yeah.
right?" And then I did it. By the way, the weird thing is, I sold that copy of What's the Story Morning Glory, and I shouldn't have done. It's one of those things that I'm like, why did I do that? But I sold my copy because it was a Creation Records copy, so
Right.
it was rarer than the copies that you get now. And
God.
I think somebody paid me something like £55 for it.
Yeah.
I,
And how much is it
so,
worth now? Do you know?
yeah, I don't even ask. Don't ask. I
No.
haven't
Get on
looked.
to, get
I've
onto
made the
Discogs,
mistake
have
of
a quick
looking.
look.
I've made the mistake of looking ones. I think people are paying anything up to about £90 for it now. And I had the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
I had the same with Be Here Now and definitely Maybe. And
So I remember a mate of mine. He got Jesus Jones Info
oh,
Freako, some kind of 12-inch sort of a variant or whatever, and he was going, this was back in '92 or whatever, going, this will be worth a bit. I don't think it is. I think it's probably about $2.99 still.
no, yeah, exactly. Pick your bands well. So a friend, basically my best mate who he's done his back in now, so we don't get to the gigs. He will only now do gigs that he really, there's certain bands that he will still go to, and that's it. Yeah, we were going out. We were going out at least twice a month, to gigs. And that particularly in that mid-90s period. And that, went to my first ever gig with him, but unfortunately, he just can't get out as much now. So, and I'm like, fair enough. He's had to retire virtually from that scene. He was he's a bit older than me, but he was basically going to all the punk bands in the late 70s. Right, but he's got all those punk bands on the color. He was the same, like somebody would release something and it was on a limited edition, red vinyl or something like that, and he's got all those on 7-inch. And you're like, your collection is worth a fortune. The weird thing was, actually, he used to sit down and record the John Peel sessions on a reel-to-reel machine. Right, that's His dad had this reel-to-reel machine. He goes, here, you can have this, and he recorded all the Peel sessions. And he said, and it was like, and we used to say to him, these things are gold. You've got all these Peel sessions. And he was like, yeah, nobody else will have these. And he said, and then the internet came. And he said, and I could download the whole lot that I had for just like that. He said, because I wasn't the only one that recorded them all. He said,
everyone was doing it.
He said, everybody had recorded these on tape. And he said, and suddenly the internet bought the whole. He said, and stuff that I didn't manage to record. He said, and now I've got all these. He's.
But you never know, do you? You could have been the only one doing it. I know, like the Doctor Who's, the TV series.
Yes.
They wiped all those back in the day, but people recorded off air, and all the audios have survived. Little people like that doing that.
Yeah.
You might be the only one doing that. I think there's like 2 or 3 people did it for Doctor Who, and they managed to cobble it all together and effectively get all the episodes at least in audio format. But I mean, that's the thing. You spend hours and hours doing that thing, recording it, and then like you say, I can download it off the internet in minutes now.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was doing the same though with through that 90s period. I was doing the same with all the bands and that we were going to see or I was into. So there's some weird things like there was a program. It was called. I'm sure it was called Hotel Babylon, but it wasn't the Hotel Babylon that we would know. And it was Danny Bear was the presenter on it. I can remember that.
Oh, God, yeah.
Echo Belly appeared on there and did a version of Atom, right? Which if it was only ever a B-side, right? And I was like, and I recorded this and I had it on video and I had these whole videos that were basically just full of, me sat there waiting, right? They're coming on, boom, TGI Friday, stuff like that. TFI Friday, TGI, God, that's bad. TFI Friday and all that stuff, yeah. I was recording just the bands. Because
Did you get the Shaun Ryder one, yeah?
Yes, I did.
Brilliant, that. It's brilliant. We won't use the language he was using on that particular broadcast. But yes. And the word, did you record the word?
Yes, the word, the White Room as well. Can you remember the White Room? I think what's this? Yeah, I mean they had there's some classic again though, but now I can go on YouTube and these are all on YouTube. Somebody did the same as me and recorded all this, and I'm like, okay, I can get lost in YouTube. Particularly if I'm working late at night and I just like put stuff on in the background. I'm like, and particularly after the listening parties. So I've been doing these. So like we did the.
It sends you off then to look at other things, does it? I take it.
Yeah, I mean, and it does, but and it's weird, Do you do the Tiny Desk YouTubes at all? The Tiny Desk.
I've seen a few of those. Yeah.
I mean, fantastic. Some of those as well that I've gone through and that.
We just have this. We just have this. This great thing, the internet, that gives us all this now. Which obviously, has impacted artists because we used to buy all their stuff and now we can just freely listen to it and watch it. But having that, we didn't have that back in the day, did we? It's recording your own mixtapes, wasn't it? Compilation tapes and all that.
What did I say though? I said it on Twitter quite a lot just recently, right? Mixtapes, right? What did you used to do? You used to know your starting song. You used to know where you wanted to get to at the end. Or at least I do. Maybe I'm a bit too geeky about all this music. I knew how I wanted it to start, how I wanted it to end, and then
Yeah.
everything in between was just trying to map out a journey. God, I do sound bad now. I'm just listening to myself,
Yeah.
but it
Well,
was.
that's
It was
what
doing a
bands are trying to do
mixtape.
when they do their album, isn't it? When they're doing the
Yeah,
track listing, that's what they
yeah,
want from it. They've got the opener, they want to hook you in, and finish off. I mean, one of my favourite bands, Afghan Wigs.
yeah.
They
Never
they
got
did an
into him, by the
album.
way, but I've heard
Oh,
I've
check
heard
them
the stuff.
out.
I'll go. I'll
Check
sit
them out.
down. You see?
They did an album. Oh God, Jesus, Black Love. It's called. Came out in about 96, 97. And the opener on that is brilliant. He does it. So Greg Dooley does like film noir style thing. His lyrics are very dark as well, but he's kind of got a story to tell in that album. But the last three tracks are just epic,
Okay.
tracks to finish on, and it just each one just builds and builds and builds. And those three tracks at the end, you could actually listen to as a complete piece almost. But it's one of those where he plays it live, and he might do those songs in that order, and you're waiting for it, sort of thing. But they're one of the bands I will go and religiously see. I didn't see them at all in the night, so my gig going was useless back in the 90s. I went to Newcastle Riverside was the big venue for me to go to, and that's where Nirvana played their first gig. Oasis had a punch up there,
Uh-huh.
um,
They
and
have punch up
stormed off
everywhere. That's
stage.
not unique.
Well,
Come on.
yeah, but I think it might have even been on the BBC or something, weird like that. But and I saw Buffalo Tom. I didn't go to see Nirvana. They played there, and they played at another venue in Newcastle. I didn't bother. But I didn't really do festivals. I know you did, because I could see you tweeted about it. If
Yeah,
you're remembering it, then
yeah,
great.
yeah. No, yeah. Yeah, it was so. But the first gig that I ever went to wasn't a gig; it was what I'd call a show because it was Pink Floyd. When they
Right.
toured
Okay. You
Division
sat
Bell.
and watched.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, don't get me wrong. One hell of an experience, incredible, incredible, incredible. But then after that, it just kind of like started building up. But yeah, festival wise, yeah, I mean, I did the obligatory Glastonbury in '95
Yeah. I've never been.
without a ticket. Somebody,
Right.
somebody,
Climbing
somebody
over the
said to me,
fence.
"Yeah, well, the fence wasn't there. By the time
Right.
you got there, the fence was down. They sold something like 90,000 tickets or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
175,000 people in there. It was crazy, and it was a dust bowl. But then after that, I mean, I haven't been back. Um,
Right.
After that, but I've done the Reading, I've done the V festivals, I've done the Isle of Wight festival, and then I do a lot of. There's a little one by us, Penfest, that plays a lot of the older bands and everything. So I
Right.
tend to
Yeah.
go there a bit, and
So I
yeah, the
managed V
little
Festival
ones.
actually back in 2005. That was the first festival I ever went to. I
Yeah,
went to a single day purely because the Pixies reunited, and I went
yes,
to
they
go.
did, didn't they? I've never seen them,
Yeah.
by the way. I would love to have seen them. So, but I must. When but are they going to be the same?
They're not. They're not. So I've seen them
Big
now.
deal.
Now that Kim Deal's left, then it's not the
Yeah,
same, and it's a bit of a karaoke thing. And in fact, I think the last two that I went to of theirs were both full album shows. So, but to be honest, their new stuff's not that great. So I'd rather listen to the old stuff.
that's my
And
that's my problem. You see, because I used to go and see Morrissey a lot because I was a big Smiths fan. Never got to see the Smiths, so I went to see. But the last gig of his that I went to, I said that's it, never again, because it was. How can I say this without being rude to what was or what is one of my idols, particularly with the Smiths, was it became a bit of a crooning session.
yeah,
And I
I
was
was going to
like,
say a bit of a
okay,
cabaret thing, is it?
yeah, that's how I felt. And I was like, and by the way, the second person that I ever saw live was Morrissey, and it was just a really weird experience, because I was just getting into him. I was just just got into the Smiths, just got into Morrissey, and there was he used to basically encourage people to get up and invade the stage. And I can remember this guy getting up and he's singing away, and this guy gets up and kneels down in front of him and just takes his hand and just kisses it, and then just gets off the
Right.
stage. And I'm like, this
Oh,
is the
jeez.
weirdest. It's like it was real worshipping. I tell you, the other band that I've seen that recently I saw them last year. It's the first time. Now, again, I'm a casual listener to this band, right? But I still go and see. By the way, support your artists. If you're going to support your artists, go and see them live as well. Really, that's what I kind of tend to do nowadays, because, as I say, too much streaming and that going on, not enough buying. But when an album comes out that is just totally and utterly, I need this album, then I will go out and buy, still, because and particularly with certain bands that I just follow religiously. But go and see them live. But I went to see Belle and Sebastian.
Okay.
Their crowd's mad. Their crowd is just out there. I'm like, wow, it's hero worshipping, and they know, I know a lot of the songs. They know the whole catalogue, right? And as a band, they kind of like, they've taken requests throughout the week on what they're going to be playing, and they're like, well, so and so requested this. Are you here? Yeah, like, yeah, boom, and they play it, right? And then they're playing along, and they're saying, oh, we're thinking of what can we follow that up with? We're gonna do this now. And then somebody shouted out, no, do so and so, and they goes, oh, that's a good choice. Yeah, let's do that instead. And they just, not practice.
They just swap around. Brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
I mean,
just like,
that's
wow.
nice because they're listening to that. I mean, when I go see Greg Dooley in Afghan Wigs, I know he's got a set list and he's not going to change that. He'll
Yeah,
interact with the crowd and that, but to totally swap and change on the fly is brilliant. It's
I love it. I love
quite
it. If a band
refreshing.
can do that, and as well as that, I love it because you can now go in, you can see what they've been, you can see what they've been playing. Actually, there's the set list, and I love it when a band just totally throws you out. Arcade Fire did it. We went to see Arcade Fire. Took my sons and daughters to see Arcade Fire a couple of years ago at Wembley Arena. Jarvis Cocker came on with them and did a song, a Run in the World. So if you search for Run in the World, don't be offended by the lyrics, please. Honestly, came out and played that with them, and it was just like one of those moments where I was like, I'm glad I was there. But again, they played different set lists every single night. Different guests every single night. I think one night they had like Florence from Florence and the Machine was there, Florence Welch, and Boy George, Chrissy Hind. They brought out these guests.
It's a real mix.
Yeah, I mean, and bringing out Jarvis, you can imagine how a London crowd, a UK crowd reacted to that. It was just like, okay, godlike moment. Thank you, Jarvis Cocker. He's a total.
Brilliant.
For me, that's total hero worship. And then we were talking about.
He's a good old Yorkshireman, is how I put it.
Yeah,
He likes to say what he thinks, sort of thing. So,
yeah.
Chris, we've been chatting for a while. I could talk for much longer about this.
Yeah,
So,
sorry.
no, but no, absolutely. Give me all right, if you can, give me your 5 bands that are your big bands that you go, these are my go-to bands that I always listen to. Obviously, the Charlatans is going to be one of them.
Charlatans are number one of them. I get a lot of derision from some of the other musical press, but Shed Seven's another one. The reason being, they're a fun band. They do you know what? You know what you're going to get, and you always get 100% performance. Rick Witter and the boys, respect to them. Yeah, I always go and see them. Suede are another one. I always go and see Suede when they're touring. I love Suede. Brett's just so class. Really is. From the newer parts, as I say, the ones that we've just recently started doing, Arcade Fire, definitely the next time they tour, we're going. I've seen them on the last 2 tours. Yeah, both times have just been absolutely outstanding. And who would I put as my last one? Oh my gosh. Do you know what? I'm struggling because there could be anybody here. Let's go Happy Mondays, right? Because you always have fun. right? And I took my children to see Happy Mondays for the first time last year. Yeah, twice actually. Once at a festival and once actually on their own, and it was amazing fun. Yeah, so let's put those in. But honestly, the list would be just too long because I constantly go. I constantly want to go. Oh, editors! Big shout out to the editors.
Editors, right? Yeah, I've
Right,
got a mate
sorry,
who's into them. Yeah.
got to shout out that one actually because again, the last band that I saw as well this year, incredible gig. So
Yeah, and one day we'll be able to all get back to gigs eventually. I'm looking forward to that moment. But I mean, for me, if you're going to go see a band live, you're not going to be able to see them now. But I was really into Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine. At
oh,
uni.
you saw them, did you? No.
I didn't see them in the '90s, but I saw all their the Reformation gigs, and they did them every
Yeah.
year. Me and a friend, and we were right in the heart of the mosh pit, and that was an exhausting
Oh
night.
my
But
god! You know what? I've never seen them. Really wanted to
oh
see them
Jesus,
because they're an
do you know
insane
what
band.
they played? So obviously they hadn't played together for a while. They split up, remain good mates, but purely because um, they they weren't getting anyone going to the gigs anymore. They just stopped doing it. But the what was it? The guy from oh god, oh, I've forgotten the name of the band now. But one of the guys, one of the people they knew, died. He was called Wiz. What's he from? Gang, not Gang of Four. I can't remember. Anyway, they did there was a charity, a sort of fundraising night in his memory, and we had the guy from Therapy singing, Andy Cairns. We had Senseless Things. Um, I don't remember who else. Anyway, the two guys from Carter were going to play, and they announced it as an acoustic thing. So they were on last, and they came on, and they got the drum machine and the samples, and actually found them, and decided to just do it like that. So it was all kind of pretend that they were going to do this acoustic set, and they brought it on, and they played 4 songs, and they completely brought the house down, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, brilliant!" Totally out of the blue. And then they decided later that year that they'd do to celebrate. I think they'd been split up for X amount of years, kind of a celebration, to do a Reformation gig. And they did the whole thing, and it's just a mental experience. And it's probably not even worth watching on DVD. I've got one of the DVDs of that. But the experience of being there, the light shows, are unbelievable. But yeah, we were right in the heart of the mosh pit. So it was. It was. I remember one bit. We were kind of, maybe a third of the way back, right at the back of the mosh pit. And by the end of the song, I was actually on the front row, and I thought, "How the hell
Wow.
did I get there? How did that happen?" And just getting crushed to death. Brilliant. Anyway, Chris, thanks ever so much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed having a chat with you about this, and I could talk to you for hours about the music stuff as well.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, probably gone on about it too much, but sorry, it's my passion above all IT as well. So you have to suffer that with me.
No, I'm not suffering at all, mate. I totally love chatting about it, and I'd say you're more a Britpop era guy. I'm more of a grunge Seattle era guy. And I think that's probably lines up
Yeah.
with where we went at the time that we went to uni. I think
Yes,
it
it
lines up
would
with
do.
that.
It would do. It would
Yeah,
do, wouldn't it? Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But then you move on. I've moved on to slightly the as I say, yeah. I saw Oasis live so many times. Yeah. And but really sometimes as well though it's the slightly fringe of Britpop in some ways as well. So bands that weren't really there. Suede in particular, you know what, that Dogman style listening session was just, I was like, okay, and yeah, but anyway, we must stop.
But Oasis and Blur, I'd say you were the Oasis guy. Yeah, in that battle.
Now you see, I saw Blur a few times as well. So it's unfair. Don't put that one on me because I did
Right.
the Park Life listening party as well. because I'd seen them quite a few times. I'd seen them in the Park Life era as well. So it wasn't just something like, oh yeah, this band's gone big now. Yeah, I saw them. Just as they were kind of like going big as well. So it's yeah.
Brilliant. No, I was Oasis, so I listened to a bit more Blur in the late night. No, I don't know when. Yeah, late 90s.
Yeah,
When was it 17? Was that the name of the album? I don't know. Yeah, it's one with
13,
song 2 on.
13,
13, yeah.
13. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. So I listened to that, but that's because to me they've gone a bit more guitar-y, a bit more
They got a bit
heavy,
more interesting, didn't they? They
Yeah,
that's unfair of me because, as I say, I listened to Park Life in that listening party and I forgot because you're picking up albums that you may not have listened to all the way through for quite a long time, and actually there were some tracks on there where I was like, do you know what, this was heavier than what I thought it was. Actually, it was a bit more, blast out the guitars more than. And Graham Coxon's a great guitarist, by the way. Absolute brilliant guitarist. So,
yeah.
yeah,
And of
really
course,
interesting.
you've changed in that time to and how you listen to things, maybe, and
Yes,
matured or whatever. So you listen it to from a different angle as well. Anyway, look, we can talk for hours. Chris, thanks.
when we meet, we
First
catch
up,
up on this.
we're going to have to have a part two. So, where if people want to reach you on the socials, what are your
It's only
handles?
Twitter. It's only Twitter, and it's young_Robbo on Twitter. I don't do any other social media. That is it. I don't blog. I don't do anything like that. I'm so bad for that, but I'm not really a good blogger.
And we
I
never even
like.
talked about W Mug and presenting because I was going to talk to you about that and stepping up to the podium, but never mind. So I think we'll have to get you back one time and chat some more about music and
Definitely.
presenting and all that.
Definitely,
Definitely,
we're trying to
Chris.
shorten it. You could keep half an hour of this one if you want, and then we can throw in another hour later on. So, anyway, but
I
yeah,
don't
no.
have time to edit this sort of crap. I'm not doing it.
Oh
I
damn!
just how this goes out is how we spoke and how we recorded it. No, I don't know. I don't edit it at all. So we'll
Well,
do another one.
thanks, Paul. Enjoy the rest of
Chris,
your
it's
day.
been a pleasure, mate.
Stay
Thanks
safe.
ever so much for taking up your morning to speak to us, and it was nice that you did a few shout outs for your guys at work as well.
Okay.
And
Cheers.
yeah, look forward to seeing you again whenever we physically meet up. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thanks. Bye now.